my loves, welcome back or welcome to our channel. Welcome if you guys are new. Today we are going to be going through all the books I read in the month of November. Our second last wrap up of the year. We do have our December one, of course, but this is our second last wrap up of the year. We are ending the year with some insanely good reads. I feel like the past few months I've just been like, oh my god guys, that was like the best reading month I've had, and it just keeps getting better. This month we did read a lot of long books, so not as many books, but like definitely quality over quantity. We read a total of 7 books, and I'm currently reading one. So a little backstory, because it is obviously Christmas time, family time. I'm going to visit my family this weekend, which is actually the last weekend of November. But I wanted to film this and get it up to you. And the book I'm currently reading, I will probably finish while I'm away, but I do have most of my thoughts on that already. So we have 7 books that I have finished at the moment. It might be 8 by the end of the month. What is crazy is only one of those books was a romance and every other one was fantasy. I am deep in my fantasy era at the moment, guys. There is absolutely no going back. I cannot get enough fantasy at the moment. I feel like usually I read a bit of fantasy and then I'm like, okay, I need a little refresher, I need a brain break. But as you'll see this month, when I was reading my brain break, I was like, I just want to get back to another fantasy world. I don't want to be reading a romance right now, like love romances still, but I'm just really in my fantasy, high fantasy era at the moment. We definitely did some personal bests, some bookish marathons this month, and I am very excited to talk about them. So yeah, without further ado, I feel like we should just get into it. First book we read in the month of November was Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is actually a standalone novel in the Cosmere. So if you are unsure, the Cosmere is Brandon Sanderson's basically high fantasy universe, and most series he writes are part of the Cosmere, just following different characters. This is a standalone in the Cosmere, and a lot of you suggested that I read this before I go on to Words of Radiance, the second book in Way of Kings. So I was like, of course I'll read another Brandon Sanderson book. This one was a really fun magic system. I actually had the best time in this. In Warbreaker, we are following 2 sisters who are both princesses, and originally the older sister was meant to be married off to the king of another realm to kind of keep the peace between. However, the king like genuinely just likes the older sister more than the little sister, and he doesn't want to pawn off his oldest daughter, so he sends this little sister in her place because he said he would send a daughter. He didn't actually ever specify what one. It was just kind of implied. So he sends his youngest to be married off to the king. I actually loved this. I really loved the magic in this. Basically, we have biochromatic magic. I'm going to read it from the back so I actually get it right. A power based on an essence known as breath, which can only be collected 1 unit at a time from individual people. But it's worth it. By using breath and drawing upon the color in everyday objects, all manner of miracles and mischief can be performed. Did I say just performed? Performed. The magic system is definitely what got me in this book. I thought it was so fascinating. I feel like with Brandon Sanderson's magic systems, whilst every series that I've read so far has been a different magic system, they all kind of have the same root. So in Mistborn, the first series I read by him, you draw upon metals to get different powers. In the Stormlight archive, you draw upon Stormlight and like gravity. In this, you draw upon color and literally like the breath, the energy inside people. So I love diving into a new world by Brandon Sanderson. This was really cool. I do recommend reading this before Words of Radiance. Honestly, if you are wanting a starting point to Brandon Sanderson's universe that isn't a series and that isn't one of his more cozy standalones, this is actually a really great starting point. It really introduces you to the way he builds a world, builds politics and magic, and I think these are really great characters to follow. It's not a difficult read. I think it's a really great introduction to his magical style, as I said, in the way he builds fantasy worlds. I gave it a 4.25 stars in the end. I really enjoyed it. I did think the ending felt a little bit almost rushed. I was kind of hoping for some other ends to be tied up in a different way, but honestly I don't have that many cons. I just know what my favorite books are by Brandon Sanderson, and this wasn't one of them, but like still incredibly good. There were definitely some slower moments, but there were some really high intense kind of action moments as well. We love a good high stakes by Brandon Sanderson. So yeah, this was the first book we read in the month of November. A very good start. Next, this one's actually a really exciting one. I read an e-arc of Dawn of the Firebird by Sarah. Now this one's super exciting because Sarah actually recently came on our podcast, which is the reason I read her book and I absolutely loved it. She was our first guest on our podcast. That episode is up. I'll link it below if you want to watch it. That was really interesting, interviewing her and just hearing about her writing process and the process in getting published and all the thoughts behind this incredibly high fantasy world she's created. So as I said, Dawn of the Firebird is a high fantasy. It was a very political, intense fantasy. The main thing that surprised me so much was the time frame. This story spanned over a long period of time, which was really interesting to read. It is the first in a trilogy, I believe. The main protagonist we are following in this as well was so incredibly just brutal in the best way possible. If you've read Blood Over Bright Haven, I feel like this embodied the same kind of female protagonist, except even more just brutal in like the best way possible, if that makes sense. Very much embodied the idea of female rage. Honestly, I got super sad during this. Our protagonist just has to undergo so many challenges, so many life-altering moments, and I just really felt for her, but the character development through this was absolutely insane. Honestly, a lot of good to say about this. I gave this a 4.25 as well, actually. The only reason it wasn't a little bit higher was because at times I did find it a little hard to follow. I feel like because there was so much going on, such intense politics, but also the magic system and the world building was so incredibly intricate. I did have to flip back to the glossary quite a bit during this, which did help, so definitely recommend doing that. There were times where I was just kind of, honestly, it may be my bad, I was a little bit lost. I just needed like a little refresher, a little bit more of an explanation on what was going on, but that definitely could be a me problem if I'm gonna be completely honest. Now I will say I read this book before I even met Sarah, like if E met her, because we did it over a call obviously for the podcast. This wasn't a biased rating at all, but now hearing her journey writing this, I'm just like, wow, you actually blow me away. You were absolutely incredible. So definitely go support her. If you like more intense high fantasies with definitely really high stakes and just no idea where the plot was going, like genuinely, I could not guess where this plot was going the entire time. The next book we read in the month of November was Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. I'm sure you guys know this by now if you follow me on any platform, because I have not shut up about this book since I read it. I did a whole reading vlog on this one, so I'll try and link that below as well if you want to go watch that. This was such an incredible journey. So this is one of the highest rated books on Goodreads, and I was like incredibly skeptical. I was like, how good can it be? Because it's 1,200 pages. Oh my god, guys, it was incredible. Every single second was incredible. We are following 3 different perspectives, the same perspectives we have in Way of Kings. So we have Shallan, Kaladin, and Dalinar. There are kind of 3 main protagonists. Oh my god. Okay, first of all, the humor in this book was absolutely insane. The character dynamics and the wit between the characters, the banter between the characters was so good. I don't know what changed from Way of Kings, but this level of writing was absolutely insane. You felt like you were in the book. It was so immersive. Just get ready because I have all good things to say about this book. It's a hefty book to hold up, I'm not gonna lie. Another reason I love this so much was because Way of Kings was very much the foundation to the Stormlight Archive. It set up the entire political system, it set up the entire magic system, and it introduced you to all of our core characters, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of characters. Like, yes, we have 3 perspectives, but there's so many characters included in those perspectives. So just getting to know our characters and the magic system and the politics was a feat in itself. And I feel like for that reason, Way of Kings, I had to focus a lot more. I was trying not to miss one single thing. I annotated it as well, just because I was so scared that if I missed one thing, I wouldn't understand what was going on. Because I had that foundation built up, I feel like going into Words of Radiance was not nearly as scary. Like, I'm not as scared to continue the rest of the series anymore because the fact that I had just the best time reading this book. The fight scenes in this were insane. Absolutely insane. Could not get enough of them, to be honest. The ending of this, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I was like, this cannot get more intense, and yet it kept just getting more intense. This was very much Shallan's book as well. Like, we definitely took a deep dive into her character, into what she's capable of, into why she is who she is, like her backstory, into what she's endured. And honestly, so much respect for Shallan. I absolutely love her as a character. Also, I was not expecting to get the tiniest little drop of romance in this. I was expecting no romance in this series. But we have like this little tease of a romance that possibly could blossom in the future books. And even that little bit, like, why is Brandon Sanderson so good at writing character chemistry? Why were they so like good together? And just as I said, the banter in this book was absolutely incredible. Not even just romantic banter, just the banter between the different characters and the back and forth between the different characters was so funny. Easiest 5 stars ever. Like, this was absolutely incredible. 6 stars, if you will. I am totally obsessed with it. Cannot recommend this series enough, guys. Seriously, just get into Brandon Sanderson's worlds. Okay, after Words of Radiance, this is when I decided I should have a palette cleanser, and that palette cleanser was The Defender by Anna Huang. This is the 2nd book in the Gods of the Game series. I know that lots of people didn't love The Striker, which is the 1st book in this series, especially a lot of Anna Huang fans. Like, if you love the Twisted series or the King of Sin series, a lot of people didn't love The Striker. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it was like long, so maybe it was a little bit boring or slow paced. The Striker is actually the only book by Anna Huang I have avidly enjoyed. All the other books by Anna Huang I just haven't connected to, but I loved our main protagonists from The Striker, so I actually was quite excited to get into The Defender. This is a football or soccer romance series. In this one we are following Vincent, who is the captain of the football team. Black Castle is the name of the football team that kind of everyone is set in this book series so far. And then we are also following Brooklyn, who is the daughter of the coach of Black Castle, but also currently interning at Black Castle to be a nutritionist. I really liked these two protagonists. My main thing when I was reading this book is I wanted more. I wanted more depth to our characters. I wanted them to feel a little bit more real. I wanted to imagine this in real life, if you know what I mean. And whilst we did get a little bit of depth to Brooklyn, I think we could have gotten more to Vincent. And I just feel like that would have strengthened their connection and the reader's connection to the characters. So I gave it a 3.5 or 3.75. I'll have to double check. It wasn't the best romance book I've ever read, but it wasn't the worst by any means. I had a really fun time reading it. It was very nice to just switch off my brain and read. It kind of felt like almost a 2000s rom-com just after reading Words of Radiance. Like, it was kind of just what I needed. I'd say if you liked The Striker, definitely read The Defender, because we do see a lot of our characters from The Striker. So they're interconnected standalones. Technically, you could read them one at a time, like, or alone. You don't have to read one after the other. I do think you have to be in a particular mood for these kind of romances because they are quite predictable, but I feel like a lot of romances are, or just as soon as you've read a certain amount of romances, it gets quite predictable. I feel like that's why I've been kind of gravitating away from them, because I kind of went through this phase where I just read so many romance books, and now I'm like, okay, I probably need a little break from that. Maybe I need to get into more contemporary fiction, who knows? But in saying all that, this is a really good, fun little romance book. Next, I read Empire of Gold. This is the third book in the City of Brass, the David trilogy, I think it's also called. I have been working my way through this series, and this is the last book in the trilogy, and it was a hefty book. Like, it was 800 pages. Oh my god, guys, it was so good. It was so good. I cannot believe how underhyped this series is. I know I keep saying it, but like, I really need more people to read this, because this is one of the best balanced trilogies I have ever read. I'm obviously not going to tell you the plot of the third book, but in the first book, City of Brass, we have three perspectives. One of them is Nari, who is a thief living on the streets of Cairo. One day she accidentally summons this very magical person. We are also following Dara and Ali. Dara has these very intense magical abilities, and Ali is a prince. The way I have grown to love so many of my characters that I started out just being about is crazy. Like, their character development was insane throughout this book, especially in the last book. Like, they grew so much. The second book was definitely my favorite of the series. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but I don't know, something about the character dynamics in that book and the way our characters interacted. Can you tell I'm a character person? Yeah, that was what I loved about that one. This one was a 4.75. Like, it was so close. It just didn't give me that 5-star feeling, and there were moments when things were a little bit slower and I did want just more character interaction, because I just think this author writes dialogue so incredibly well that I was just craving it a little bit. But in terms of plot, this was absolutely incredible. Nothing I can fault. I also absolutely love the ending of this. I feel like sometimes trilogies give this very unbelievable kind of just ending to hopefully satisfy everyone that's reading it, whereas this was a very realistic ending, and I appreciated that so much. The amount of magical creatures in this world was insane. We're heavily inspired by Egyptian mythology, and I do think we have a lot of Middle Eastern influences on the magic system, cultural system, and political system. So I really love it for that reason as well. But the mythical creatures were absolutely incredible. They just kept coming as well. They really just kept coming, and they held such a prevalent part in the plot, especially in the last book. Like, they were really a key part of the plot, which I just love. Like, guys, I am a sucker for a mythical creature or an animal companion. So as soon as that started happening, I was like, you know I'm going to be absolutely loving this book. This series is just so nostalgic to me, and it was so unique and refreshing. I haven't read anything like this before. I feel like if you like Ember in the Ashes, maybe Kiss of Deception, those kind of things, those kind of old classic fantasies that are really unique and different, that don't follow that kind of typical modern fantasy plotline, then you will absolutely love this series. Not saying that that's a bad plotline to follow, like the modern fantasy. I do love that as well. But yeah, if you're just craving something a little bit different, highly recommend. So yeah, this is a 4.75. Not a lot I can fault about this. It was absolutely incredible. And also the plot twists in this were crazy. They just kept coming. It was definitely more plot twist heavy in the second book, but there were still ones that were thrown at you in this series, and I was like, I cannot. When you think you're safe, you're not. You're absolutely not. Next, I read We Three Heroes by Lynette Noni. This is a little, well, it's not that little, but a novella collection of short stories to the Akane series, or the Madoran Chronicles, sorry. You guys know the Madoran Chronicles are one of my like soul series. I love them so much. It is a YA fantasy series. We are following Alex, who finds out she has magical abilities and starts to attend a magical academy. So we have an academy setting. We have such a great sense of found family. It is a very YA feeling series, but the magic in it is so mystical and nostalgic. It is kind of just everything you want in like a fun YA academy setting fantasy series, to be honest. But I hadn't read the We Three Heroes novella. It's recommended to read it in between number 4 and 5. But honestly, this was so much sadder than I thought it was going to be. Because I'd finished the series quite a while ago, I jumped into this not exactly knowing what we'd be following, but we really truly did just follow some of the saddest events within the Madoran Chronicles through a different perspective. And I was like, my heart was just breaking all over again. So the first story is DC's story, who is Alex's roommate in the Madoran Chronicles. We are following DC as she kind of starts to find her way to Akane, the academy, trying to find friends. She is a very misunderstood character. She's a really interesting character arc actually for a YA series, and I loved her as a character. We are also following Jordan. Whilst DC's novella is very much her backstory, Jordan's novella is very central to the plot, so do not read this before you've read at least book 4. And then Bear's story is kind of him working through his life challenges. Literally hurts my heart to even think about it. I love Bear as a character. He is amazing. But yeah, this was a really sweet little novella. I need to start reading novellas more because some of the series that are my all-time favorites do have novellas, and I need to get into that a little bit more. But there is one more in this series which I am very excited to read very soon. The world of Medora is just honestly such a magical, mystical world, and I love being back in it. Like, it kind of reminds me of Neverland. It's like my Neverland. This series also recently got republished in 2 different covers, so hopefully it's a little bit more accessible for everyone, because I often got comments saying that you can't find it outside Australia basically. So hopefully now it'll become a little bit more accessible, because I really want you guys to be able to read it. The last book I have finished in the month of November is For No Mortal Creature by Kesh Chow. This was on my December TBR and I was really excited to get to this one. This was pitched to me as Wuthering Heights meets Inception, and it is a YA fantasy. I will say it felt very YA. I feel like Wuthering Heights is such a complicated tragic love story that it set different expectations, but once I removed those expectations, it was a bit of a tragic love story, but in the best way possible. I can see the similarities, and Inception definitely could see the similarities. Basically, we are following our protagonist when she has this realization that her magical ability is the power to die and then come back to life. So reincarnate basically, which nobody can do. When she dies though, she realizes there are actually different levels of death. So if you have seen Inception, there are different levels of dreams. It's very much the same kind of idea. We have different levels of death. First one is just like you're a ghost. If you die as a ghost, then you go to the second one, and then there's the third one, which is like a super dark area, and there's usually no coming back from there. Lynn tries to use this power to kind of solve her grandmother's very mysterious death, who she was trying to save. I did really enjoy this. I thought it was a really refreshing read, especially for a YA book. Like, I have not read anything like this before. It was very moody and atmospheric, as you can imagine, being set in the world of the dead basically, which I did really like. I feel like the cover gives off the vibes really, really well. It read very similarly to Our Infinite Fate in the sense that we had that magical realism feel about it, except the ending wasn't quite as bizarre as Our Infinite Fates. At least I thought that was a bizarre ending. I didn't love this book for the romance, which was very much a subplot anyway, but I did love it for the plot and the atmosphere and just the moodiness of it. It was very, very fun. I pretty much read this in like a day or less than 24 hours on a very rainy day, so it was perfect timing. I do recommend this though. I think it was really interesting. We did have a little bit of politics kind of scattered in there as well, which was nice for a YA book. It did feel so YA though. I don't know how to describe it, but it felt very simple in the sense of world building and everything, which was good, I guess, because the idea of having different levels of death like that is kind of a complicated idea, so it makes it very easy for anyone to read. Like if you're younger and you haven't read anything kind of complicated or high fantasy yet, very easy to read. You'll be totally fine. Almost in a way, this gave me One Dark Window, like Rachel Gillig vibe, but just aimed at a younger audience. So if you like that kind of moody atmospheric vibe, definitely recommend. Yeah, this was really fun. And then before we go, I thought I'd let you know that the book I am currently reading is The Cursed Melodies by Connie Glynn. This was also on my December TBR, and the reason I said I think I will finish it is because it is a very little book. I think it is literally just 300 pages. We are following 3 main protagonists. 2 of them are twins and one is, oh yeah, just a girl. Paths cross at Fountains Abbey Academy, but I am just having fun because it is a cute YA fantasy academy setting, which you guys know I love academy setting, but I do think I'll probably finish this by the time November is over. So I did want to give it in here. At the moment, I'm getting like 3.5 4-star feel from this. I hope you don't mind me doing that. I just really wanted to get a quality wrap up and not be rushing it. I'm rushing the editing process. So yeah, that is our current read. But that is everything we read in the month of November. A very successful reading month. If you've watched till here, watched till the end, amazing. Thank you so much. But also let me know what your favorite read of the month was. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Wrap-ups are so much fun. We have one more before the end of the year, which is crazy. But I love you guys all so much, and I will see you in my next video.